Hi, this is Mary Kay. Today I'm going to be painting a Peregrine Falcon with a chick in the nest out at Devil's Slide. This is the photograph that I got from Jane Knoll and copied on my printer. A little bit of space on an 8.5 by 11. I used water soluble tracing paper to trace it on my 8th sheet 140 cold press bright white Arches paper, and then I used Pebeo Drawing Gum with a little number 1 brush to do some Pebeo work. So I'm just going to show you how I do that because this is an important step. Take dilute shampoo. This is about 1/3 shampoo and 2/3 water. I put my brush in there and work it through. Then open up the Pebeo Drawing Gum, and I just use a tiny little bit to dip it in there and scrape it on the sides, and I go in and I just put it on the feet, the beak, the eye, and these little white areas of this wing in front. Then the next thing is make sure you rinse your brush. So it has to dry before you get going. The colors that I'm going to use today are French Ultramarine Blue. I use Winsor Newton, but any brand of French Ultramarine will work because it's always PB29. And I use Winsor Newton Burnt Sienna, which is PR101. And when you mix these together, you can get all of those colors, which are pretty much every color in this except a little bit of extra bright yellow there. So the first step I'm going to do is I'm going to mix a nice puddle. No, first thing I'm going to do is wet all the background. I'm using a 3/4 inch flat brush. I got a little bit of pink from somewhere right there. Don't worry about things like that. And there's a little bit of smudge in the water soluble graphite, which just kind of comes out a little bit gray, but that's not going to matter. I'm wetting all the background behind the bird, behind the falcon, not the foreground. I can go right over the feet, and I'm going to go around. Do you see this? Here's the chick, and the chick's sibling right in here. I'm just going to go around those. Make sure I've got a lot of water there. It's a very, very humid day. I'll be surprised if this dries at all. And then I'm going to go in right, oh, that had some grayish color in it. Not going to worry about it because I'm painting the background that color anyway. Now I'm going right up next to all these lines. These pencil brushes can be found in museums. They're very inexpensive. They don't last forever, but they have a nice point on them. When I kind of start to ruin them, I just go get another one. So I'm wetting in between these primary, or I don't know what these tail feathers. I'm gonna go around. I think the little fluffy chick with that expression on its face is so cute. I can go over the beak. I'm just gonna round the head of the Peregrine Falcon. And then up here, and these are the primaries. I'm just doing a little water in between those. Once I get it wet, then what I'm going to do is make a big puddle of French Ultramarine Blue and Burnt Sienna. I squished out some burnt sienna and French ultramarine blue. So when I just touch this puddle, I'm getting a lot of paint. I'm not going to have to scrub at it to get enough pigment. And I want a lot of pigment because we're going to use a lot today because we're making this background so dark. So if it's pure blue, it looks like that, and if it's pure burnt sienna, it looks like that, and then somewhere in between we have these mixtures. So I'm going to go with a little bit more brown into this, and there is kind of a yellower rock up here, but I'm going to start in here. I'm just trying to put a lot of pigment. See, that wasn't, it looked like it was so much, and it wasn't that much. I'm making more. I'm only using these two colors, so if I don't hit the exact color, I don't mind at all, because we don't want to have this be just the same color all through here. Down in here we have sort of a little thing of feathers, really. Where a bunch of feathers have come out. So again, I'm just kind of filling this in, and then I'm going to go with the pencil brush. I'm mixing more paint. Easy to mix because it's those two colors, and I've squished it out so it goes right into my brush. I'm just painting all the dark area around the bird. And I'm not doing the big bright rock in front. Now I'm going to go in with my pencil brush and just go right up next to the wing. So right on the edge of this wing, there's a little highlight, so that's where I used Pebeo. I can go over the Pebeo, and I'm going right next to the tail. And I'm coming in here. Going around the wing feathers. And here, just being careful. These brushes have a nice tip, so I can just use the tiny little tip of the brush to do these little areas. Same thing over here. Just using a last little tip of the brush, barely touching it all. I'm not pushing on it at all. Just getting those tiny little tips. And then right here, around the wing. And down around the body. The very tip of the beak is black. I don't want to make this area right around the beak super, super dark. Okay, so, and then around the tail feathers, around the chick, the funny chick. You funny. And that's, I've got a blob there, I'll just lift that up. That's really, I just want it loose. I don't want to spend a lot of time on it. I just want to put it down and forget that I've done it. We're going to let that dry. I'm going to work on the rocks at the bottom now. So the rocks at the bottom, see how bright they are. So the nest, inside the nest, it's right on the rocks, is dark, but out here is is the bright sunlight. So I think this color is raw sienna. Looks like a lot of raw sienna. I maybe should have squished out some more raw sienna, but I don't need as much of it. So this is dry, and I'm just adding a lot of water to get it to lift, to come up, get enough pigment. I can put a dab of burnt sienna in there to sort of brown it up a little bit. And now I'm just gonna put this color in the foreground. This is all the watermark of the Arches paper. I'm going to switch over to my pencil brush. This is dry on dry, so the paper is dry. I'm using this, I call it the belly of the brush, because I want to leave some white showing. So I paint with the side of the brush right here, and it kind of skips over this paper. And this part here is pretty light also. It's rocks. I want to make sure I have a little bit of white paper showing through that. And then I can go in and make a little bit darker color. This is just adding burnt sienna to it and a little bit of that background color. And then if I just put a little bit more of this in, kind of randomly, I'm going to get it to look like that bright rock in the sun. Go clear to my corners. Great time to sign my name in here. I'm going to do it right over this watermark, the Arches France watermark. I'm just writing with my carved bamboo signer. Mary Kay, S. period, Jolly. I dig right into the damp paper. Then I put a C with a line around it. I can go back over this, my name, a little bit more paint, and it goes dark right into the little hole that I made. In this, there's a shadow on this rock right here. I'm going to add that. There's a couple more shadows in this bright rock. So what I'm going to do is just go into that color that I used on the background with my pencil brush, and I'm just going to add a dark shadow here. There's a dark shadow down here. I'm just kind of faking it. Then there's some in here. There's one goes across here. Just adding some little roughed up little spots to make it look like, I'm not painting every crack or every pebble. I'm just using the side of my brush to suggest that these are rocks. There we go with that. That part's done. What I'm going to do now is see if I can get this rock. There's a rock in the upper right hand corner. It's the same color as the rock here, but it is in the shade of the nest. I wonder if they even call them nests, because they're just right there on the rocks. So again, this is raw sienna. So what I'm going to try to do is just add a little bit up in this corner and see what it does. Make it kind of a rock shape. And I'm going to do like that. Just paint a little bit. This is called charging. When the paint that you're putting on the paper is wetter than the paint on it, it kind of takes over a little bit. And we'll see. I'm going to leave it. I'm not going to worry about it. The next thing I'm going to do is kind of fluff up some feathers in this part and put in the first coat on the chicks. And this is all kind of a light blue-gray color. So I see it as these colors in here. So just a French Ultra, oh, that's upside down. French Ultra with a little bit of burnt sienna in it, and then a bunch of water. So that's what I'm going to go for. So if I do, oh, that's a lot, but I'll just water that down. There we go. It's just kind of a gray blue. If I take my paper towel, I'll get a lot of water out of it. So this level right, this is just very pale. It's not white. These chicks are in the shadow, so they're not going to have white on them at all. The white is that light color. And then there's feathers down here. And I don't know what else they put down here to make it soft, but and I'll just bring that up and out. Now I'm going to go and make a little bit more dark, and that is burnt sienna and French ultramarine blue. Same two colors, just more of each to kind of get it almost black. You can see when you mix them half and half, it comes out very dark brown. Whee! There we go. So I'm gonna, and this is, I'm gonna put this in so it blurs, because these are all fluffy feathers, and I'll put the eyeballs and a beak in later. So here he is. This is one of them. It's just right here. You can look in and see him. And then he's got a sibling over here. There's another one. They're sort of touching each other. They're hiding. They're overlapping. And then there's feathers in here. So I'm just putting a little bit of blue fluff in there. Here we have some, I actually think this is, I don't really know what this is honestly, but I'm going to make it a little bit browner right in there by adding more burnt sienna. I think it might be a rock. And then there's a little shadow here. Okay, I think that's good. I'm going to soften this in here because I want these feathers to just look like downy feathers, and I'll put a couple, when it's dry, I'll put 2 eyes and a beak in there. This is just a soft downy feathers. It's like a little soft blob. I'm gonna go work on the bird now. So on the bird, there's really 2 colors. There's colors that are in the blue-gray, which is this wing, the top of his head, and the tail. And there's colors that are in the brownish, which is this wing, the body, and the head, and the belly, really. And the feet are kind of orange, and so is part of the beak and the eye. So I'm going to start with this gray-blue color. That's going to be, or even this one, it's the background color of the wing, this wing here. So I'm going to see if I can get that. Yeah, I almost have it just perfect right there. Maybe just a little more blue. Lots of water. Okay, so I'm just painting this. Yep. This is the first layer, so I start with a really light layer. And it looks like it's in the sun. And then the body, the top of the head is the same color. Now that I've painted this once already because I didn't get the video to go all the way. I'm almost seeing some violet in this wing now. I kind of want to put the tiniest bit of permanent rose into this. And just have a little, oh, I like that. It's a little bit, oh yeah. And I see some of that color right in here. It goes gray there. I see it in the top of the head right there. Now I'm going to start painting some dark colors on these primary feathers on the wings. And I do not have the patience to paint every feather, and I don't want to. I like to just sort of suggest it and have the viewer's eye do a lot of the work for me, because I'm kind of a little bit impatient and lazy. And if I wanted the photograph, I would just hang the photograph on my wall. So here I'm trying again to get that a little bit darker shade on the primaries up here. Maybe even just a little bit darker at those very top of the primaries. But we can tell it's in the light. And then these feathers in here go from that line to that line. Kind of go out like that. And then there is this right in here, it's kind of spotted. If it's spotted, I just sort of paint with the side of my brush. I'm going to go just one more little bit darker on the tops of those primaries. That's what I'm going to do for that wing. Now I'm going to, these same colors I'm working down here. So it's it's almost pure white. So I'm just using so much water and hardly any pigment at all. In fact, it might have gotten a little dark there, so I'll just lift it up. And now I'm going in to put lines like this and lines going across. And like I said, if I just want to suggest it, not trying to paint every little spot. If you really love to paint detail, you can spend hours on this. It's just really not how I paint, so. Okay, there we go on that part. Now I'm going to work on this wing here. The brown is much warmer. This is very yellow. So I'm going to do the body and that wing now. I think I'm almost going to just wipe this up. And I do love the color of the rock right here. I think that actually might be kind of a good spot to start. If I put a little bit more burnt sienna into it, and a lot of water, I think that's almost like the light color in this. Yeah, it's really close. I have Pebeo right here on the edge, and that's going to lift up pure white. There's a little bit of highlight or kind of a gray at the top of that wing. Remember, this is the first layer. It's the lightest color. The throat is this color. It could even have a little bit of yellow in it. That's a dark cheek. So here we go. I'm gonna, when this gets dry, we're gonna lift up the Pebeo and put the feet, the beak, the eye, and the highlights in. So right now what I'm gonna do is make a darker brown. So it's burnt sienna and French Ultra, but it's mostly gonna be burnt sienna. There, we got it. And I'm gonna paint these primaries. And there's a lot of little crisscrosses, but you know, I'm not painting all of those crisscrosses. I'm just gonna paint it like this. I'm just using the side of my brush to suggest that those are all those little stripes. And it's such an amazing photograph. And those little stripes come all the way down to the body. And so I'm just skipping over a little bit with the side of my brush. Like that. I might help these a little bit here. I see quite a bit of dark right here, so I'm going to put some darker burnt sienna and French Ultra right there to really emphasize that tiny bit of shadow. Right in here, right next to that. And maybe I'll just bring some of that down so that, like that. Maybe a few stripes up here. Up to that. And now I have to try to figure out why I drew this in like this. This looks like this bit of the wing just has a little bit of the gray on it. The gray pinky color. So I'm seeing that, and I'm gonna put that in now. It must be the top of the wing. This is the underside and the other side is this color. So I think it's just showing up right there. I'm gonna leave it like that. I think that's enough. Now, when you pull the Pebeo up, your painting has to be dry. So I have my blow dryer right here. So this is going to be loud and noisy. I'm just going to dry it just very quickly right here and here. This is a pickup. It works really well for, oh, you know what I should do? I should definitely paint in around the face before I lift those up. So, you can hear my husband talking to the kitties. So here's this kind of light orangish breast, and then it's very dark. Right around the eye. Almost black. This kind of looks like the cheek. I don't know if Peregrine falcons have cheeks. But it's very, very dark right there. And then I'm just going to add a little bit of water to this. And I'm going to make a hood over the eye. It's the shadow of a little crest. Comes around. And then this has that little pinky gray color to it again. Right in here. And right here, right around the eye here. And then in here, I see some dark, so I'm just going to add a little bit of dark right in here, a little bit more. Now I'm going to dry that for another just moment. And now I'm going to lift up the Pebeo, all of it now, and get a nice round eye, beak, feet with claws, and highlight on the wing. There, that's all the Pebeo that I used. Now I'm going to use my little bitty brush, and I'm going to make some nice bright yellow. And I'm going to paint the eye, the round eye, this yellow. And then there's just a tiny bit of burnt sienna into that yellow for this part of the beak right here. And I'm going to paint the feet. The feet have a yellow highlight right here, and really kind of right up here. Then I'm going to take the yellow with the burnt sienna, my little bitty brush, a little bit more burnt sienna, get that kind of warm yellowy color, and then paint the feet. And there's this color right here. Now I'm going to make some very dark black again, which is French ultramarine blue and burnt sienna, just about half and half, but both really thick. There it is, just on this little bitty brush. And I'm going to paint the tip of the beak. It's going to show up because my background is dark, but it's not black. There's a nostril. And and the eye has a black circle. If you're really good, you'll leave a glint. I'm not that good today because I took up half of that before we started. And then there's claws. talons at the tips of some of these. This one has a talon. This was a talon. This one has a talon. I think this has a talon. That one you can't really see the talon. This one goes underneath. And then the last thing is to put a little eye. There's 2 eyes and a beak on this little guy's face. So I'm just going to make a circle. Leaving a glint. This one, it's not such a big circle, it's kind of like a half. And then there's a beak right in here. And then the second one really is almost like a back behind it. It's just hiding. I'm just putting fluff in there. And I'm gonna put a little bit of fluff in here too. Those are, this is just feathers that are soft in there. Now, do I want to add anything to this little white area out here? Maybe I'll just put a little bit of burnt sienna, kind of just next to that white, so that it really feels like it's glowing. If you've watched the red-tailed hawks and the red-shouldered hawks, you can really see the glow when they hit the sunlight. And then that will make that look like it's in the sun a little bit more. Not sure about this. I think that's a little better. Do I need any darks anywhere else, or are we good? Maybe just another hood, another bit of hood. There and here. Maybe some shadow in the claw. All right, I think that's it. I'm gonna stop. So if you made it to the end of the video, please leave either a burnt sienna heart or maybe a French ultramarine blue heart in the comments. Thanks for watching.